present are checked in on the board. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Powers.
Turn on my microphone. Creator of all things, lover of all humankind, guide us in our deliberations tonight. Give us wisdom, patience, and courage as we work for the citizens of Winnebago County. We also come to you in thankfulness for the many years of service given by our friend and colleague Sue Ertmer, who is retiring. We thank you for the long-term contributions she has made in the execution of daily tasks, in her loyalty to our county, and in her sharing of her experience and wisdom with others. Keep her vigorous in body, mind, soul, and spirit, that she may enjoy the fruits of her labor. Amen.
Amen. Do I have a motion for the adoption of tonight's agenda? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. This time will be allowed for person present to express their opinion on any resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over which this body has jurisdiction. Pursuant to rules 6.4 and 8.1 and 10.1 of the 2022 through 2024 rules of the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, the county board chair shall limit the public comments to 2 minutes. So if you wish to come up, just come right up and go ahead and speak. State your name and address, please.
Road, Fox Crossing, Supervisor, District 4. Mr. Chairman, my reading and interpretation of the ARPA final rule differs from that of the Winnebago County ARPA Commission and majority of the County Board of Supervisors. The plain reading of the Federal Register, the official journal of the federal government of the United States, that contains the government agency rules, proposed rules, and public notices, gives any municipality a choice to accept $10 million of ARPA funds as lost revenue available to be spent on not excluded projects, and the balance is accountable under ARPA rules. Or to document for December 31st, all in for revenue replacement. Winnebago County, Wisconsin has chosen to appropriate all its $33,390,918 million allocation to lost revenue and thus avoid accounting for individual projects. I have testified at my own expense to the ARPA Commission and also presented my case to this county board. I continue to oppose creation of the Spirit Fund, inasmuch as the county administration has not presented proof to this county board that as of December 31st, lost revenue minus the reduction in expenses is the calculation supporting its choice to allocate all ARPA funds to lost revenue. The strict legal reading of the U.S. Treasury formula does not mention subtracting reduction in expenses from the lost revenue, but anyone who has dealt with the federal government knows that when in doubt, don't. Like Barry Goldwater, in your heart you know you ought to discount reduced expenses to the calculation for lost revenue.
Thank you. Please.
Laura Ackman, 4477 Fairview Road, Larson, Wisconsin. I'm responding to resolution number 166-012-023 to dissolve the Diversity Affairs Committee. I support the resolution to dissolve this commission. I believe the commission is duplicative in nature as to what is already required of both the private sector and the government employees via federal and state laws. Winnebago County has both a civil rights plan and an affirmative action plan, which certifies that all programs and services it provides are free from discrimination as defined by laws and ordinances. In Section 2 of the Commission's bylaws, it states, "The purpose of the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Committee is to create educational events in Winnebago County for all who reside and work in Winnebago County. We will make every effort to treat all people with the same respect we expect to receive." As outlined by various steering committee members, the function of this committee could be handled by other groups, committees, or commissions, and that the DAC is redundant. It is not financially prudent to fund a resource to coordinate 4 to 6 events per year, again, that could be supported and delivered elsewhere within the system. Based on recommendations to dissolve this program, it appears that many conclude the outreach identified as part of the DAC can be handled by other entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wish to speak?
Mark Harris, 2425 Sandstone Court, and I want to speak on Resolution 167-012023. And that resolution would allow reserves from Parkview to be transferred into a different fund. And I have a real concern there because the reserves are working as they were intended. They're all money either paid in by residents, federal monies intended for nursing home care, or levy allocated by this board for nursing home care. And we know that the baby boomers who were born between 1946 and 1964 will be turning 77 this year. And nationally, the average age of admittance to a nursing home is about age 80. And half of all nursing home residents are over 85 years of age. But when they're first admitted, it's a much lower age. And one thing we know is that as the baby boomers age, there'll be less and less nursing home beds available. No one's building new nursing homes. And in fact, many nursing homes are closing or reducing their beds. And I think money that was collected specifically for the purpose of providing nursing home care should be reserved for the problem we know is coming when the baby boomers retire. And even their retirement may require changes to Parkview, both in capacity but in the services offered. For instance, when Parkview was built, I expressed concern that the bathing facilities were not adequate for everyone to bathe daily. And I was told, well, the people in their 80s and 90s that were in Parkview at the time did not bathe. They washed up every day, but they didn't get a shower or a bath every day, so that the facilities were adequate for what their expectations would be. I suspect when the baby boomers retire, we'll want modifications for the building that would allow more of the people to have a daily shower. So I just would be very, very cautious with moving reserves out of Parkview's funds, out of their enterprise fund, and into a different fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak before the board?
I'd like to speak to 2 resolutions. May I do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll start with the Resolution 166, the Diversity Affairs Commission. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I'm Kathleen Propp, 1936 Hazel Street, Oshkosh, and I think that dissolving the Diversity Commission is a bad mistake and it's poor public policy. Doing away with the Diversity Committee sends a terrible message to businesses, workers, anyone living here or considering a move to Winnebago County. All local business and industry and schools, we know, desperately need workers of all skill levels and backgrounds. Dissolving the commission gives the impression that the county board is either oblivious to our increasingly diverse population or doesn't care. I want Winnebago County to welcome everyone. If there's something wrong with the commission, Have an honest dialogue, make changes, but do not dissolve it. Appoint supervisors who care about his mission, not that they want to sign on to get rid of it. And next, I want to speak on Resolution 167, the Spirit Fund. And again, I'm Kathleen Prop, 1936 Hazel Street, Oshkosh. As some of you know, I spoke at the ARPA Commission meeting on December 14 to call public attention to what I believe is Winnebago County's poor process for handling its rather large allocation of $33 million in ARPA funds. At that meeting, I called the process fishy. From the start, the county board and executive, I believe, have made poor decisions. The October resolution to spend the entire $33 million covering lost revenue, so-called, and I say, what lost revenue? Fishy. I still do not believe that federal auditors or independent analysts would find any significant lost revenue. But fishier yet, Spirit Fund. A spirit is something you can't see, can't touch, can't really know about it. I suppose that does describe the Spirit Fund. But I genuinely appreciate County Executive Damel's comments in the December 28 Herald explaining his strategy for the Spirit Fund.
Get ready to wrap it up, please.
I have 2 minutes, and that's only about half of it. He confirms that setting
You
up
have had your 2 minutes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else? Okay, well, pardon? There's one on Zoom. Linda Jasinski. As soon as we can get him brought up.
Okay.
Okay, state your name and
Okay,
address,
yes,
please.
I'm ready to speak. Len Kaczewski, 832 Neff Court, Box Crossing. I'm speaking regarding the resolution before the county board dealing with the termination of the Diversity Commission. We do not need a government entity to tell us to treat others with dignity and respect. This commission was established when there was never a need for it in the first place, and it really serves no function that is not already served well enough by other elements of our society. So I fully agree with the resolution. An ancient president once said, to paraphrase him, that there's nothing that's closer to eternal life than a government entity. And I'm glad to see that Winnebago County does not adhere to that commonly held philosophy in government that once a government program or entity is established, it has to live forever. I think this particular commission does not need to live forever or live beyond the conclusion of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Hudick? Want to unmute yourself, please? You need to unmute yourself, please.
Trying to.
Thank you.
Okay, that's better.
State your name and address, please.
Ed Hudak, 1207 Skyview Drive, District 7. I support this resolution to dissolve the Diversity Affairs Commission. We have too much government duplication, and the commission's work could be done by other departments. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no one else on Zoom. Anyone else from the public? Last call. Not seeing any else. That part is closed. Communication petitions, memorial accounts, commendations. Get you up here, Julie.
Okay, we have two zoning amendments tonight to bring forward. These will be referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee. One from Winnebago Incorporated in care of Nancy Johnshoy in the town of Clayton, rezoning from R2 to R1. The second one for Winnebago County Whitman Regional Airport for various municipalities to repeal and replace Chapter 24 of the Winnebago County General Code. We have a number of resolutions from other counties. These will either all have been or will be referred to the Legislative Committee. A number of them are the same. So from Dorr, Lafayette, Langlade, Monroe, they have a request for the state to revise the current real estate transfer fee revenue formula. From St. Croix County, a resolution requesting the state of Wisconsin to review and revise the entry-level compensation rate for assistant district attorneys. And then it's the same thing for Trempealeau County. We have a number of commendations tonight. The first one is a commendation for Stephen Brewer. Stephen Brewer retired after 29 years serving the community as a member of the Sheriff's Office, where he started in November of 1993. He worked as a deputy in the Corrections and Patrol Divisions before being promoted to Patrol Sergeant in 2008. He transferred from the Patrol Division to the Corrections Division as a sergeant in 2011. Stephen was a member of the SWAT team, the Boat Patrol Unit, and the Snow Patrol Unit. He coordinated the DNR enforcement and record rotation programs for the agency. In January of 2013, Stephen was promoted to Patrol Shift Lieutenant, where he finished his career on January 4th, 2023. His record of service and sacrifice is both commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as Stephen enters the next chapter of his life. The next one is for Daniel Hinton. Congratulations to Dan Hinton for almost 30 years of dedicated service to the people of Winnebago County. Dan retires from Winnebago County Department of Human Services as our Prevention Services Coordinator. Dan worked very independently, but also in conjunction with many other wonderful organizations in our community with a common purpose of promoting the health and well-being of our citizens. One of Dan's passions was working with youth, and he developed and refined a class for underage drinking offenses to help reduce recidivism with this population and promote healthy choices. Dan worked with many community agencies in targeted substance abuse and suicide prevention in our county. We would like to wish Dan a very happy retirement with his wife, Kay. The next one is a commendation for Jane Hughes. Jane Hughes began her career in 1981 as a co-op student in the Register of Deeds office, after which she briefly worked in the district attorney's office as a clerk typist. In 1983, Jane joined the personnel department as a receptionist. She was promoted to the assistant payroll and benefits manager in 1997, and then in 2011 became the payroll and benefits manager. During that time, she navigated employees through a variety of benefit programs and answered countless questions. She was extremely dedicated and relied upon for her expertise. We appreciate Jane for the great services she provided for over 41 years and wish her well on her next adventures. She looks forward to spending more time with her family and running their farm. A commendation for Darren Putzer. Darren Putzer retired after nearly 32 years of serving the community as a member of the Sheriff's Office, where he started in February of 1991. He primarily worked in the Corrections and Patrol Divisions, while also working as a detective and a courthouse security deputy. He was a member of the TACT team, the Boat Patrol Unit, and the Snow Patrol Unit. As the lead crash reconstructionist for many years, Darren was considered a subject matter expert in the field of accident investigation. His work has been recognized locally and nationally by the National Transportation Safety Board. He took pride in training new deputies in accident investigation. Darren retired from his career as a patrol deputy on December 21st, 2022. His record of service and sacrifice is both commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as Darren enters the next chapter of his life. Commendation for Andrew Ray. Andy Ray began his career with the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office on November 11th, 1999 as a corrections deputy. Before his employment with the county, Andy was a Spanish teacher. After 23 years as a corrections deputy, in 2012, Andy became law enforcement certified to open up new opportunities. Andy participated in a 3-month assignment in the Patrol Division, completing their field training program in 2015. From there, he was selected to join the Court Services Unit. Andy's knowledge from both divisions over his career allowed him to take on a more administrative role within the Court Services Unit. During his final years with the agency, he was responsible for scheduling prison transportation and excelled in this role. His record of service is commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as Andy enters the next chapter of his life. Commendation for Greg Rothy. Greg began his career with Winnebago County in September of 1998 as a maintenance worker in the facilities department and was promoted to an HVAC specialist in April of 2000. Greg gained a wealth of knowledge during his years of service. He was always willing to help others and was very responsive to requests. The facilities department is grateful to have worked with Greg for so many years. His commitment and dedication to Winnebago County was great. Please join me in expressing our gratitude for Greg's 24 years of service and best wishes for an enjoyable retirement. Commendation for Teresa Vanook. Congratulations to Terry Boudreau Vanook on her retirement. Terry devoted almost 40 years of her life to the crisis team. Although her title has changed a few times over the years, the work she did remained the same. Terry was passionate about her work and her role as the gatekeeper. Terry provided much support to her fellow co-workers and the community with her wealth of knowledge and expertise. She never backed down from a challenge, even when faced with some pretty difficult situations. Terry made a difference in so many people's lives. We wish Terry nothing but the best in her retirement and thank her for pouring her heart and soul into the work that she did. She was an asset to Winnebago County and will be greatly missed. Commendation for Karen Witt. Karen Witt began her career with Winnebago County in the Clerk of Court's office as a clerk receptionist. Over the last 22 years, she took on several new roles for the Clerk of Court's office, the most recent being in the Criminal Traffic Division as an Administrative Associate 3. Karen was very dedicated to her job, providing excellent customer service at all times. She was committed to helping other staff when she could and taking on tasks to assist the different jury clerks she worked with over the years. She had an excellent rapport with customers, including citizens of Winnebago County, the District Attorney's Office, local police agencies, and attorneys. Over the course of 22 years of county service, Karen saw many changes in the handling of cases, such as moving from paper filing to the electronic age. We appreciate her dedication and wish her well on her retirement adventures. And that's it.
Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple updates from Judiciary and Public Safety. We did discuss the referred resolution to JPS 2022. It was the referendum on cannabis. We had a really good presentation from Sheriff Motz and a really good point of view from District Attorney Spar. We also had some public comments as well as a result. The vote was 3 no, 1 yes, and we had 1 abstain. The next JPS meeting, just so everyone knows, put it on your calendar, is February 6th at 6 p.m. I have asked for an update on the 980 housing project as well as the morgue project. So at this point, we're expecting an update on that. And we'll also be discussing some proposed rule changes as well that have come up, and the referred resolution that we approved and we're going to now continue with, which is looking at the committee structure starting in the 2024 term. And that's all on February 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Safe Streets Initiative is going to be meeting this upcoming Friday at noon, Branch 2, here in the courthouse. And the Safe Streets Initiative is a committee that was created maybe about 10 years ago. That is similar to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council in other counties. And this is where we will get to talk a little bit about our current diversion programs.
Shoot, I just turned him off, I'm sorry.
Our current diversion programs, and it's a chance for us to take a look at the numbers of how many are admitted, how many have succeeded, how many have graduated, and talk a little bit about what Winnebago County can do in regards to lowering our recidivism rate. So just wanted to let the county board know of that. Again, that's this upcoming Friday, the 20th at noon at Branch 2.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights on at this time. We'll move into approval of December 20th, 2022 regular session board proceedings. Motion made and seconded for the approval. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I've got one light before that aye went on. Supervisor Miller.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Then it passed. Okay, so next up then we have our county executive report.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Good evening. Want to start off by wishing my grandfather Ralph Walters a very happy 102 birthday today. World War II vet who served on the USS Baltimore. So happy birthday, Grandpa. It's quite the feat. He's stubborn. I wonder where I get that from. First is the 980 update. The city of Oshkosh approved the zoning for the 980 project last Tuesday. They did, however, make an amendment to limit the project to 8 total units. We will be submitting the RFB by the end of the week and look forward to moving this project along. Our goal is to put a shovel in the ground as soon as possible as well as complete this project at or below budget. The timing is of the essence on this. We are currently waiting to place one 980, and the state has just made aware that yet another is petitioning for release. Day-by-day update. Day-by-day staff has taken over operations of the shelter. Training has begun, and they have hired a new operations manager, as well as other key staff. We held after-action review on Friday to go over what went well and what didn't. This is members of the cities, of county, their staff, our staff, as well as some of their board members. It was very helpful. As part of the Neighborhood Improvement Grant Fund and a plan as a response to this emergency, the county is going to create an interagency task force on homelessness. Day by Day will be the priority organization to start with on this task force. We hope state, federal, and trade association representatives will serve on this task force for us. Participation will be required as part of the NIF grant agreement and further agreements. The desire is to fund and achieve the goals set forth by the Winnebago Land Housing Coalition report, which we based our NIF grant proposal off of. As far as the Neighborhood Improvement Grant Fund reporting, I want to clear up an erroneous statement that I made during the last meeting. While I claimed fault in not having grantees bring updates to the board, we are not at the 6-month mark in the grant cycle. The state did not accept our agreement until November of 2022. The beginning of the grant cycle starts when we disperse the funds. We are still waiting the money to come in and to be given out. I will always be willing to admit when I am wrong. In this case, the county administration did not make a mistake. Just wanted to clear that up. Next is the Spirit Fund. Tonight we have a resolution to create a Spirit Fund. This is to improve the transparency for these funds to continue the intent to improve resiliency in our community. I have stated that we could simply have allowed these funds to stay in our general operating fund, and I wasn't willing to accept that. We need to place this money into a separate fund so at the end of the day we can make a list of all the ways it was used to benefit our organization and our communities. If you make the decision to create the Spirit Fund tonight, I will be immediately signing the resolution so we can take appropriate action on the following resolutions pertaining to county projects to be paid for by that fund. All these were internal county projects that have been brought to my attention by our staff and thoroughly vetted by staff over the last year. ARPA update. I've received a lot of questions about our commission, and I admit the process has been a little rushed and maybe perhaps a little confusing thus far. We'll be having a discussion this week in this week's meeting on how to make the process easier to follow and participate in. I've asked staff to give us a presentation on how we can actually look at some of these funds, whether that be block grants or other ways to make it clear for us. And I have heard your concerns, and we will take a look at adjusting the process to make it easier for all. Recodification update. First phase of recodification has come to an end. Chairman Egan, department heads, corporation counsel, and administration have been reviewing our county code and simply going over housekeeping edits at this point, as well as making our code a searchable document for our citizens. Simple fixes like removing references to the town of Menasha, for those of you in Fox Crossing, and listing Highway 10 as Highway 45, as it has been for quite some time, have been the focus of the process so far. These edits will be going back to Muni Code so they can provide us with a cleaner draft. Once received, we will go through another round of oversight with each committee chair, then to committees, and eventually to the full county board for adoption. I look forward to giving our citizens an updated county code that is easy to find, search, and understand. No edits will be removed from the process. Any line that has been striked will be available on this document with lines through it and highlighted suggestions. So there will be not a single word struck that you won't see in this process. Lastly, I want to talk about the wage study that we're going to have a presentation on tonight. I want to address the presentation that you're going to have because you're going to see some concerning themes throughout the presentation as Dr. McGrath goes over her findings. We will be bringing some policy decisions forward soon for you to contemplate and hopefully pass. It has become clear to me that we need an overhaul of our pay for merit system, a system that is currently in place and causing us a lot of compression. When the time comes, I hope that you will trust the system that we propose. We are in what people call a labor crisis, and I will say again, it is a labor reality. We need to understand that the workforce from 55 to 65 is the same size as the workforce from 25 to 55. That's a 10-year span that's going to retire, equivalent to the 30-year span behind them. So we have to make Winnebago County a place to work again. Together, we can once again turn Winnebago County jobs into Winnebago County careers. But we have a lot of work to do beyond wages. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any questions, I thank you. Yes. Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Damo, I think a lot of us want an answer to this question on something that your predecessor had said. I noticed that the funds that are going into the Spirit Fund are the exact same as the amount we received in the ARPA funds total. Are we taking out of one pocket and putting it into another with the Parkview funds going into the Spirit Fund, or were those funds actually put there from the ARPA funds initially?
The money that is in the Parkview Fund, we're not touching. So we are going to replace funds for lost revenue and then take those funds out to make the Spirit Fund. And there's a lot more to ask, and if I could, I'd rather defer that to Director Collard for a more precise answer, if you don't.
We usually don't, but I will let this, because I know it's going to be a question, come up by a lot, but otherwise, usually not.
Thank you.
Mr. Collard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the answer is yes. In other words, the resolution passed by this board last October, I think it's Resolution 110-10-2022, appropriated the money, the ARPA money, that we claimed as lost revenue and used it to pay for existing expenses that we had already incurred, in fact already paid, in various general fund departments and in the Parkview Fund. So we put $33 million into those funds, which about $15 million is the amount that was put in Parkview, and then we're taking that same money back out. So it is kind of a bookkeeping maneuver. According to ARPA, we could just leave the money where it is, but it was the wish of the commission to, have accountability for how we eventually spend that money rather than just putting it in our bank account and spending it later according to whatever the board may direct. So it's really the same exact dollar amount that we put in based on the action of the board last October, authorizing us to consider that as compensation for a lost revenue that was used to fund ordinary general governmental services, which is what the ARPA regulations allow. So it's the same money going in and out of the general fund and the same money going in and out of the Parkview fund. It doesn't touch the existing Parkview fund balance that was there prior to that money going in from the ARPA fund.
Okay, thank you very much, because I even had emails that were questioning about that, so I was glad it came up so we could address it right now, so thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. County Board report. First thing I've got tonight is, although I did see him on Zoom, Jim Weiss has to be excused and Betsy Ellenberg has to be excused. I was also asked the marijuana resolution that was diverted back to legislative and judiciary, why that wasn't put on tonight's agenda. Well, it's because legislative did meet and judiciary met, but they met after, like, say, 6 o'clock. You have to have everything in, all of you should know by now, by noon. And so it didn't get put in on that because they didn't meet till 6 o'clock that night. So that's why it wasn't on there. But you all heard the vote, it was brought up, so that's why that wasn't put on there. I'm not saying it won't come back on there. Then the last thing I guess I have to say is it's always an honor to serve all of you, but sometimes things get, you just when you didn't have to. But it has come to my attention, in which I've seen it already, that some of the inappropriate posting by a county board supervisor has appeared in connection with the Winnebago County meeting agenda. This matter is being investigated by an independent outside source. So I thank you for your patience while the investigation is underway. We do know about it. The investigation is going on by outside source, and so I do appreciate it, but yes, we do know about it, and it's being handled at this time, so I just wanted to let you all know. Any questions on it? I see you whispering. If you want to say something? No, I'm just okay. Surprised. Why? I didn't know there was an investigation. Okay. All right. Anyone have any questions of me? Otherwise, we'll keep right on going. We've got a lot to do tonight. Okay, our next thing up is a compensation study update with executive report by Victoria McGarth, McGarth Human Resources Group. She had planned to be here tonight, but because of some health reason, she wasn't able to, so she'll be by Zoom tonight. So you can definitely see what's going on. There, you can ask some questions, but I do want to remind you that this in no way is what's going to be result in this. There's a lot of studying that has to go on that I know that administration staff and all the rest of them's got to look at before any decisions are being made. This is just what she's taken from the county. So anytime we're ready on Zoom. Okay.
Hopefully you can see my screen and hopefully I'm unmuted.
You're unmuted.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. And again, my apologies for not being able to be there in person. Unfortunately, I had a little bit of a medical issue that's prohibiting from flying. So, but again, I appreciate your flexibility at least. For those of you who know me, I'm Dr. Victoria McGrath. I'm CEO of McGrath Human Resources Group. We were a firm that was
Just hold a second, please, Mr. McGrath.
Okay. Are we unmuted?
There
And
you
now
go.
we'll share.
Now you're
Sorry about that. Gotta love technology, right?
We just, okay. We can hear you.
Great. Okay, thank you. Again, thank you much. We were formed in the year 2000, so we are celebrating our 22nd year in business. So this is our first compensation study by any stretch of the imagination. We have a little bit over 550 clients company-wide in 42 states. And up until recently, I was a native of Wisconsin, moved to Illinois, and I now live in Tennessee. Joining you from a mountaintop. There's two.
Just hold on, we cut out again here. I think it's on your end, though. They say it's on your end. Ms. Graff, we cannot hear you. They're telling me it's on your end, though. We cannot hear you yet, Mr. McGrath. Ms. McGrath, you are silenced on this end. They say they're on. Okay, I can see your picture now. You're muted, Ms. McGrath.
All right, hopefully I'm unmuted.
There you go. Thank you.
And again, I apologize. I do not know what's going on with Zoom this evening, and I need to get back to screen sharing. But I'll keep going. So part of the project what we were asked to do is to come in and take a look at the compensation study that was developed in 2016 and update it. So it's not as comprehensive as the first one, but taking a look at what did you do with what we told you to do, and then what has happened since then. So part of the compensation study was to confirm the compensation philosophy of the organization. We did that by talking to administration. We went out and got external market data for benchmark positions. We obtained information on any positions that were new or changed since the last compensation study, and then obviously have integrated that into recommendations that we're still kind of finalizing at this point in time. So just correct, you will not be voting on or seeing what the final product is today. In addition to that, we were asked to take a look at some of the benefits that the organization has, and we'll talk about those very briefly. The main focus tonight, however, is on the compensation study. So we basically spent time talking with department directors through a survey that they were asked to complete, county administration. We reviewed your current system, and then we solicited data from 16 different public organizations, and we got their minimum, midpoint, maximum, and incumbent salary. We used that in order to compare what your current salary schedule is. You should have received a report. In the report, since I'm unable to share my screen, is what the comparable organizations were. We received all but one, the La Crosse County, so we got very good results. Since the time period that we received the results or the data, a number of the counties that are on your list have also gone through compensation updates. So when we are looking at the 2023 schedule, not only are we looking at where you were in 2022, but we were also able to obtain a lot of the 23 data to see whether or not 23 you will continue to be in line with the market. When we talk about positions, we talk about something called a comp ratio. And a comp ratio basically is your average to the average market minimum. And when we do that, we establish a range. So between 45 and 50 and 60% is basically okay. That means that we are okay. You know, your salaries are okay. And then right now, if we were to look just at your minimums and compare them to the average market minimums of the 22 schedules, it's going to look like you're in line, that there really isn't a problem, because 67% of your current market minimums align with the average market minimum of your comparables. What's disconcerting, or what is not really telling you the whole story, is that the vast preponderance of the organizations in 2022 that did not do a comp study are not starting at the minimum. And Winnebago would like to be starting higher than the minimum, but they're not able to, which is something I'll explain shortly. But only 33 of your positions are technically below the minimum. But if we were to be able to gather where those organizations are actually starting within their salary schedule to compare to where Winnebago has to start in your salary schedule, you get a much different picture. You would find that a vast preponderance of the positions in Winnebago have a starting salary than less than what's being utilized within your competitors. In addition to that, what we looked at is the control point. When the schedule was originally built a couple of years back in 2016, I think it was, the control point represents the average market rate. Average market rate means that a person who is fully capable and competent of the job should be reaching that average market rate within 3 to 5 years. And that's not happening here. Right now, 50% of your employees are below the average, below the control point, which is telling me they're not moving through that salary schedule and they're not getting to that control point. You also have 50% that are above the market, that are above that control point. The problem is that they're just barely above it. And so again, you're reaching the control point. Some employees are, but you're not getting beyond that. And what's causing then is a clogging, that's the technical term, a clogging of the salary ranges, because now you have these salary ranges from minimum to control point where you potentially could be hiring people from, but your current employees are still within that range and not allowing you to use that range to hire appropriately. So basically what's happening is that when we did this study back in 2016, number one, people were supposed to be placed to the minimum of the salary range. That took up, and that took several years to implement. The second thing that was supposed to happen was there was supposed to be a plan in place to take current employees who were at the lower end of that salary range and put a plan to slowly move them throughout the salary range so that by 3 to 5 years, they were hitting the control point. By the time they were beyond 5 years, they were getting beyond the control point and the upper end of the control point and the upper end of the salary range. And that really hasn't happened. And so as of right now, you have over 381 employees with 6 years of experience or more who are either at or below the control point. And that's causing a huge compression problems. It's causing hiring difficulties, and obviously it's causing, I would say, some retention problems. The other thing in the original study, we talked about having 2 increases. And when I met with the Finance Committee, a really good analogy of that is looking at it as a step system. The first increase was supposed to happen, I used January and July just for my purposes, but January 1st of every year, the salary schedule was supposed to increase, and that you have been doing. The problem is you haven't been increasing the employees along with it. So if I was at the control point on January 1st, the schedule has now increased, but now the schedule is higher than what I'm making. So I've already lost grounds because the schedule has changed, but I haven't. Then with the type of percent increase you have available for merit, it's barely catching up, if at all, to whatever that increase to that salary schedule is supposed to be. So think of your system as the old-fashioned step system. On January 1st, if I was on step 5 and step 5 increased by 1.5%, I should be moving up 1.5% to stay on step 5. And then in July, when I have my performance increase, I move to step 6. And it's those 2 increases that will keep an individual moving through the salary schedule, and that's not what's happening. In fact, I did an analogy, it's in the report right now. Under your current scenario, a person starting at step 1 will not reach the control point until possibly around year 19. And by then, that schedule is significantly below the salary schedules of the external market. So basically what needs to occur is a number of things. Number one is you need to make sure those employees move through the range. The other thing you need to worry about is the in-range compression. And so what I'm trying to do at this point in time is to look at where the salary schedule should be for 2023 and find a balance between making sure people get to the minimum, but having enough money left over to move those folks through that salary range, thus clearing up those hiring ranges. And you're going to need to do that because a couple things that we need to keep in mind. Number one, there has been about a 37% decrease in the number of applicants going into government. People just don't want to go into government anymore. We have a reputation, we're slow, we take forever to make decisions, we don't move quickly enough, and so therefore, why go into something that is that slow? The second thing, however, is that government jobs have increased by over 56%. You add that to what's going on with the population general. I know a couple of folks were talking about baby boomers before, and the problem is the baby boomers had kids. The kids of the baby boomers aren't having kids. And so now we have this very shrinking labor force. And so therefore there isn't enough employees to go around. And so you're competing not only with the other municipalities around you, but you're competing with all the different types of private sector opportunities that people have, especially when the private sector is reacting much more quickly to this type of situation than we are. And so we need to start looking at not only compensation. There's a great article out there if you ever get your hands on it. It's from NeoGov, and it's called The Silent Crisis in Government. And it's basically saying that employees want higher pay, they want more work-life balance, they want to feel like they're valued in their job, they want to have staff development, and you've got to look at that combination of things in order to make sure that you have the right object. There is a graph in your report that talks about years of service. I think what's pretty disconcerting is that right now you have your average years of service is 10 years, where the national average is 6.5. You are above that. I think after listening to all the accommodations from those folks that are retiring and moving on, I think that 10 years is decreasing, because right now you have maybe about 20% of your population that has 20 years or more, and that's what's holding your number up. That's the only reason why you have that length of tenure. I think something you need to be concerned about right now is that 436 of your current employees have less than 4 years of service. Less than 4 years of service. That's almost half of your population. And so the questions become, what are you going to do to keep them? Why should I stay there? Why should I stay with Winnebago County if that's all I'm going to get is barely enough to keep me moving through the salary range and barely enough to keep me up with the cost of living and obviously with inflation? So we've done a couple things to the salary schedule. I'm still finalizing it. Number one, I've taken the 2023 schedule that was adopted. I'm now taking that and changing the percentages between some of the pay grades. That helps to eliminate some of that compression issue. It also helps rearrange your pay ranges without having to do a lot of pay grade changes. The second thing is we are doing some pay grade changes because that shift alone is insufficient for some positions within the county. So we're looking at that, both of those. And right now I'm trying to strike, like I said, a balance between making sure those minimums are competitive, but not spending all the money on getting people up to the minimum and not having enough money to move people further within that salary range. So again, I think the takeaway from this is, number one, you need to have the health of the maintenance of the schedule. Number one, you need to continue those salary schedule adjustments, but this time you need to include moving the people along with it. So again, if you have that salary schedule increase, that salary schedule has also have to be given to employees. Then you can have your annual adjustment. I know you do everything in January. I do strongly recommend, as I did before, you separate those. So there's the cost of living increase that everybody sees in January, and then there's the merit increase that you see in July. I have put some markers or some benchmarks behind the scenes of the salary schedule so that human resources can start taking a look on an annual basis. Is that increase to the salary schedule plus the merit enough to get people through that salary schedule? And I'm suggesting potentially a third increase. That third increase is not guaranteed, but it would say, okay, I've got Susie, and Susie's been here for 10 years, and Susie's just at the control point. She has acceptable performance. We need to give her a slight market adjustment to get her slightly above the control point. So there's some benchmarks along the way that human resources can try to help move those folks through that salary range so that you don't get stuck. I would also say, again, periodic review of the schedule every 3 to 5 years. This is a little bit longer than I think you should have waited, especially with the market and what's going on with the labor workforce and with inflation. But I would definitely keep another lookout another 2 to 3 years if the market continues to be this way. My crystal ball is very cloudy, so if yours is better than mine, but at least another 3 years, go out and do another dipstick and try to do those course corrections now before it costs you a lot of money. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is a couple of minor issues that we have looked at. I'm not going to spend much time on them. We have looked at shift differentials. I know the Human Services is coming to you with a plan on shift differentials. Differentials are definitely making a comeback, especially in positions that are non-traditional 24/7. I think, I think the county is walking down the right path by putting those differentials in, but making sure that those shift differentials are consistently applied for all positions that are beyond the 24/7 or the normal 40-hour work week position. So I highly recommend you move along that path. Your tool allowance, your mechanics have to purchase their own tools. I'm not sure what they're going to get for $250 a year. So I think you definitely need to look at increasing that tool allowance to help them have the supplies that they need. We did take a look at your health insurance. We looked at it from the premium perspective and what's the out-of-pocket exposure to the employee when I look at my premiums, plus any type of deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. You're right in the middle of the pack. So you've got a bunch that are doing better than you, and you have some municipalities that are doing worse than you. It's not something that's going to say, hey, I'm going to come to Winnebago because their benefits are so good, but it's not going to be a showstopper that say, well, their benefits are so bad. So something I think you need to continue to work with your health insurance broker on. One of the things that I talked about was work-life balance. And so I think you need to start looking at a little bit of reshuffling of your time off. I've had some conversations with Mark, and we've talked about, do you get rid of the floating holidays and just put them into vacation time? Do you make a PTO policy where it's vacation, bereavement, and floating holidays, and then you keep your holiday bank separate? Your sick leave is a little bit less than what's normally out there. So again, I think you need to look at some of the reshuffling of those benefits to make it more user-friendly so that people can have that work-life balance. My understanding is at one point in time, there was a sick leave payout to a post-employee health plan. I strongly recommend that's something that you look at again, do a prorated sick leave payout, but not by cash, that it goes into a tax deferred and a post-employment health plan. And last but not least, I know a lot of places did this during COVID, but for your exempt level and folks, again, looking at that work-life balance, something you may want to consider is, making sure that you have a county-wide flex time policy so that employees can kind of flex their schedule if they're staying late at night for evening meetings. It's not a one-for-one, but, they can kind of flex their schedule a little bit to compensate for that. So I think I'm done talking now, but I will entertain any questions that you have.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. McGrath, several times you mentioned slowly moving employees through to the control point. What's the value of slowly moving? Why not move them more quickly? Why slowly do this? Thank you.
Well, I would love to do it quickly, but it all comes down to one thing: how much money do you have? So, if I recently worked a year or so ago with Barron County, who tried to slowly get folks into the ranges where they should be, and found that they kept compounding the problem. And finally, we put a plan in place, and I hate to use it, but we ripped the Band-Aid off and said, okay, you're going to spend this amount of money to get people within that salary range where they should be. So the only thing that's slowing you down right now is how much financial resources are you going to put people within that salary range where they should be.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From all that I've heard you say, wouldn't a step system better serve our needs here in Winnebago County? Ms. McGrath?
Step systems are making a comeback. And they're making a comeback because, as one of my clients put it, we live with a generation right now that chases the shiny object. And if I can't see what the shiny object is here, I'm going to go across the street where I know what the shiny object is. So yes, I think step systems are definitely very easy to administer. The concern with step system is that you got to have the money to fund them. And so it's either you move to the next box or you don't move to the next box. And the history of Winnebago, if I understand it, when you don't have enough money, you don't put people to the next box. And so that's how you get yourself in trouble. Having the range system allows you some of that flexibility where you're not stuck by that 2.5% box or by that 3% box, but you still have to commit the resources. You just have a little bit more flexibility. So you need to treat your system kind of like a step system, but just don't have the hard box there that you either have to do it or don't have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's something that the Personnel and Finance Committee ought to have a discussion about. Thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for this presentation. I'm wondering if your analysis has any consideration for the costs of not having a position filled. So some things we could always find like a vendor to contract the work out to. That comes with varying costs, but I'm just curious if any of the adjustments or considerations took into account the cost of not having positions filled.
There's two ways to look at cost not having positions filled. Number one is obviously you've got savings in dollars that you can obviously use to help fund any type of fund plan. What you have to be careful is if you don't have positions filled, how much extra work are other people doing around you? How much overtime is being incurred for those folks that are taking up those responsibilities? And you have a lot of open positions, especially in some of your departments. So I think the county at some point in time, and I've said this to all my municipal employers, and it's not just you, at some point in time, you're going to have to take a look at what types of services do we have to provide? What are we here to provide? And we have to make sure that we pay competitive salaries for that. You are purchasing the skills and the skills and labor of those folks to provide those services. Without those folks, there is no services that you're going to provide. So if you can't fund your system, the question then becomes, what services it's nice to provide, but maybe you shouldn't be providing. And unfortunately, this is not a staffing study, so we did not get into that. But I think that's going to be some hard decisions you're going to have to make, especially as tax dollars continue to stay the way they are, because in Wisconsin, you have the tax caps. You also have the shrinking employee population, so the competition for that is going to go up. And at some point in time, there's going to be decisions that are going to have to be made.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Bender.
I would just like to agree. I agree with the step raises. When I worked for the county, we had the step raises, and it was a fair system. Every 18 months, you got evaluated, and if you were at that level, the supervisor gave you that raise. If you weren't, they'd tell you, here's 3 months, this is what you need to improve on. We have a lot of employees that are excellent employees, and the way the system is right now under the merit-based pay scale, an employee that's at a certain step can only get 4 shares. He can be rated at the top level, and this year a share was worth 0.8%. So that employee, the most he could get is 3.2%. So it's hard for him to move up a pay scale when we're giving a 4% raise. And I know several of them that are stellar employees, and they only got 3 shares. So, they'd only got basically a 2.4% raise. And it's not right the way we do it. We need to basically look into that and go back to the step raise. And the 4% should be a merit-based pay. A new employee can get 7 shares. So if you're a new employee and you're at the lower pay scale, you can earn 7 shares. But an employee that's been here for 20 years that has all that experience, he can only get 4 shares. So how is that just when you have no chance of getting a 4% raise?
Any other questions? Any other ones? Not seeing any? Oops, we got one more here.
Sorry.
Supervisor Harrison.
Thank you for doing the study. A couple questions come to mind. I'm looking back at 2016 when we did another study, and I guess I'm just wondering in your process and how you checked, what are the things that you noticed back then that we did, and did we not do as much, and that's how we got way behind now?
Yes. First of all, it took you several years to implement it, and I'm not sure how you implemented it, but it did take several years. And the longer it takes to implement, the more costly it becomes, because as you try to catch up, the market's still going ahead. So I would say, what you don't want to do this time is have the study and then not fund it to make sure that people get to the minimum and that we can at least minimally fund folks moving through that salary range. So I think that's the first thing you did. The second thing is whether it's a step system, whether it's a merit system, you have to go back to what was recommended. There has to be 2 increases. Whether it's a step system, whether it's a merit, when you increase that salary range, employees have to receive that same increase. When they get their merit, then that's when they're going to move through that. And if you keep those up, and again, constantly going back through and making sure your positions are competitive, you shouldn't have to be spending a lot of money to catch up.
Okay. And I noticed you said a lot that that people like to be appreciated, like to have special training, and just to feel better about their job. The money's one part, I understand, but when you come out with a study like this now, you kind of get the feeling that we got behind, and that's why we're losing a lot of people. I was surprised when you said we don't have that many people that have 10 years here. It's kind of shocking, to see that, because we should have a lot of employees. Sue here has got a lot more than a lot of those people do, so we appreciate it, and that long time helps a lot. So I think we need to go forward on this. We have to take a look at this very seriously, because I know with the study, a lot of people are waiting for this. When they talked about raises, they talked about extra money, whatever came up, it was always that this is coming out. We really have to do something to show that we really are concerned about this part of it. So thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if Dr. McGrath could answer Supervisor Binder's question about the 3 to 4 shares as opposed to getting 7 shares. I don't think she answered that question. Thank you.
First of all, it was a little difficult to understand it, but I'm not that familiar with your shares and your merit system. So I think, however you divvy it up maybe needs to be reevaluated so that there at least, whatever a share is at least equivalent to what, something that would be a typical step increase. So, if your step increases before were 2.5% or 3%, then we have to make sure that at least the shares are at least something similar to that. And so that we don't, again, raise that schedule, but we're not moving people through it. So unfortunately, I'm not that familiar with your shares, other than maybe it needs to be reevaluated and making sure that there's sufficient shares for both the market increase and a merit increase.
Okay, I thank you very much. I see no other lights, so I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. And if you have any other questions, please let Mark know, and I'll get back to him. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next is Director Mike Elder from the Facilities and Human Services Elevator.
Hi, good evening. I've got a brief presentation for a necessary repair we've got, and it's a project to replace the elevator controls on the Oshkosh Human Services public elevator. It's a critical repair. It's needed in order to make the elevator operational. Right now, it is unoperational, it's parked, and we have to escort people through to the employee elevator to get to the 2nd and 3rd floors. It does not really qualify for an emergency repair, because the definition of an emergency repair would be something that presents imminent danger to an individual, the building itself, or equipment. So it's already broke. We can't do anything more to it. A little bit of the background is Oshkosh Human Services building was built in 2 phases. The first phase is roughly almost 100 years old now. It was built in 1927. It's got an elevator there that is strictly used for the employees. The newer part of it was built in 1995, and an elevator was put in there. And that is the one that, when we bought the building later in the 90s, that we turned that into the employee entrance, public entrance that gets them into the 2nd and 3rd floors and not back into the secured areas where Human Services is doing the bulk of their work. It's been in operation for 28 years. We've maintained it yearly. It's been inspected yearly. There's been no indication that we were going to have a problem with the elevator. But mechanical things break. sometime this fall, or middle to late fall, the elevator controls started acting erratically, pretty much like what we were having with the courthouse elevators here. The doors weren't opening right. The elevator car itself wasn't centering or leveling with the floors, so when people are getting out, and sometimes you'd get in the elevator and it would just stall right there. The doors would close, but you wouldn't go anywhere. So we called in our elevator maintenance company, and it's the elevator maintenance company is a multinational company. It's not a shade tree elevator company. They know what they're doing. They install elevators, they install escalators, they design and develop their own elevators. They traced the problem down to a couple parts. We replaced those parts, and the problem still came back. And what we found was, or what we traced it back to, was the microprocessor that controls the elevators. We tried to repair it. We sent it out for service 3 times. It went back to the manufacturer. They replaced a few little parts on the circuit cards. Comes back, problem's still here. So what has basically evolved into is now we have to replace the microprocessor. Unfortunately, it's 28 years old. And if anybody had a computer from 1998, Windows 3.1 doesn't work anymore. You might have even had DOS. So what we found is there aren't any available. We've searched eBay, we've searched secondhand parts places. We've gone back to the actual manufacturer, who is Otis, and they're gone, they're obsolete, they're not available. So now we have to replace the controls. And what we're looking at doing is replacing the controls with a new microprocessor and other sensors that are all compatible. Stepping back a little bit, we also looked at, instead of getting an Otis controller, let's go with a Kone controller or a Schindler controller. And what happens is these systems are proprietary, and you can't get another manufacturer's microprocessor or anything to work with the rest of the system. They're just not compatible. That's how they started doing the business back when they started doing elevators. So what we're looking at doing is replacing the elevator controls with what's called a non-proprietary control system, which means anybody can work on it. So we're not married to a specific company to do the maintenance. Anybody can get the parts for it, so that we don't have being held hostage by the elevator manufacturer to have to buy the parts from them. And because the elevator was installed back in the 90s, the codes have changed. And now that when we have to start making repairs to it, we have to bring some of the things that aren't necessarily related to it up to code. So we have to do some fireproofing in the buildings, and we have to replace the door into the elevator equipment room with a fireproof door. So the whole project would be replacing the elevator controls, doing the structural modifications, and having a non-proprietary system. And what our opinion of probable cost for that would be is $230,000. If you take a look at what it cost for us to do the elevators here, we did 3 elevators for a little over $1.2 million. So going with what we've got right now, it's a pretty comparable project. The prices are a little bit better, but this is a repair that we have to do in order to make this elevator operational. And I'll take any questions from you.
Not seeing, oops. Supervisor Gustafsson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is, what was the original lifespan of, let's say, the original modules for that elevator?
What we found in talking to our consultants and the elevator companies, they say you should be replacing elevator controls every 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
So we've gone 28 years. It's kind of hard for me, both as a taxpayer and as an engineer, to tell you I have to replace something for $300,000 when it's not really broke. Unfortunately, sometimes when things break, they don't give you the warning that we can plan for it and do it in an organized manner. And sometimes especially with the electronics, there are all sorts of little, for lack of a better term, gremlins out there that can cause a problem. If we get a power spike, it fries a circuit card, and that's not something that you normally, you can plan for.
And was there any sort of particular maintenance fund or plan with the elevators over the years, as you were kind of just saying that typically they recommend replacing them, let's say every 15, 20 years, and we got to 28. I know you just said obviously it's hard to come to the taxpayer and ask for them to obviously replace this, but was there any sort of, I guess, ongoing maintenance that was done, and then kind of what the price that was maybe associated with that?
Ongoing maintenance. They're inspected and maintained every month. Every 5 years they do weight tests, and all that's paid for out of my operating budget. And I believe it comes to about $50,000 to $60,000 a year that we pay for elevator maintenance. We don't have a specific fund set aside for doing repairs because, well, in the time that I've been here and the way we've done things in the past, you can't really tax the taxpayers for work that you're not going to do, so that you build up these huge additional funds. The county has their contingency funds and the rainy day funds, but if every department started saying, I need to put aside $100,000 a year for unexpected repairs so that it's all covered, that becomes, I think, problematic for our financial people.
Sure. And then one last question, just how much do you think has been spent on the repairs of this elevator up to this point?
Up to this point?
Yeah.
We have had a pretty good relationship with Kone, and this has all been part of their maintenance contract, so we have not seen a bill for it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Cox.
Not to question your,
Take your microphone, please, Supervisor Cox.
not to question your diligence in going out and getting bids and whatever, but what was the last time you bid for this, and what was the price, the overall price on it then, and how long has it been since you're now getting to the job? Because it's going to go up if we're too far out.
I believe it was 2 years ago we did the elevators here in the courthouse, and the bid came in at $1,279,000 for 3 elevators.
Now, we're talking about one elevator in Human Services. Is that
Right.
correct?
But if you look at it, for one elevator, it's $400,000 in this building. Granted, this building has 5 floors, and it had controls from 1938. We have gotten a quote from Kone Elevator for doing this work, and that's what we've based our
What's the quote? What's the quote?
The quote was for $135,000 just for the controls, not including any of the building maintenance or building adjustments, not any of the costs for the design work that we've had to go out for, and no contingency, because this building is, 1992 age, and once we start doing something, you never know what you're going to get into.
So right now, your total cost, and how far back was this that you?
For what, the opinion of probable cost that we got?
Right.
A month.
Okay, so to go ahead, you'd be going ahead on this particular dollar amount,
Correct.
and you could get it done how soon?
As soon as we can get the parts in. As you all have heard me talk about before, the supply chain can be a real problem. I have been waiting for some electronic parts for over a year. Kone, because this is a non-proprietary system, we believe we can get it relatively quickly. But it all depends on how many people are all now going to replace elevator controls.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. I think that's all there is for today. Zoning reports and ordinances. Report number 1, various parcel owners, Winnebago County zoning. Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. we're doing the report, correct?
Right.
Yeah, report number 1, various parcel owners, Brian O'Rourke, Winnebago County Zoning Department. Move for approval.
Is there a second? Pardon? Okay. Supervisor Cox. Your light was on again.
I'm sorry,
All right, not seeing any lights. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 010123, rezoning from A1 agribusiness to A2 general agriculture for multiple tax parcels. Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve mandatory ordinance 010123.
Motion made and seconded. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell us what this concerns? There are multiple owners, and they're going from agribusiness to agriculture.
Supervisor Hintz.
Are they getting out of farm preservation? Are they going out of agricultural? Can we have some explanation about that?
Supervisor Hintz.
Yes, Mr. Eisen, this is a kind of a cleanup in the county, and every single property that's on this sheet that you have here asks to be on this sheet. This isn't being forced upon anybody. This is the property owners wanting the rezone.
And yes, they're going out of A1 to A2. That's what it amounts to.
Yes.
Well, they just want to be more flexible. They won't be limited to just agribusiness. According to what I read in the code, the difference between A1 and A2, they can maybe put a residence, another residence there of some kind, according to the definition within the code.
I don't want to speak for all of the property owners. I know several of them that are on this, and I know many of them are not looking to build residential in their areas, and this makes their business much easier for them and makes their property all even. Everybody's on the same playing field as far as the county goes this way too.
Well, what I've read is that the agribusiness A1 is intended to accommodate large-scale agricultural uses and related support services. Includes those areas of the county where productive agricultural lands predominate and can be used for the production of forest products, crops, livestock, including large livestock operations. General agriculture, and it is designed to meet requirements for a certified farmland preservation as well. So I suspect that there are people who want to get out of farmland preservation. They go to general agriculture intended to accommodate both large and small scale farms and hobby farms, although scattered residential lots are allowed. Agriculture is the predominant use. So I think maybe everyone has a better idea that these folks are kind of opting out of a federal program.
You're correct, Supervisor Eisen, that's mainly what they want to do. They want to get out of these programs because the programs they used to be able to get money on, but then they couldn't go ahead. If you collected it, then you had to go back. Say if I wanted to sell you a piece of land, all that money had to be paid back and all that. So a lot of them don't even get that anymore. So they just want to get out of A1, go into A2, like you said. It's more free, that they can go ahead and do more things, like you said, build a residence or something like that, yes.
Less federal control, huh?
That's right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 15601, 2023, commendation for Stephen Brewer, I'm sorry, Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please let me make a motion for 15601, 2023 for the commendation for Stephen Brewer.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 15701, 2023, commendation for Daniel Hinton, Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept my resolution 15701, 2023 for accommodation for Daniel Hinton.
Motion made and seconded. Supervisor Swan.
There's some typos in this that Stephen Brewer carries through in the whereas and the lower paragraphs for Daniel Hinton's accommodation.
They were handed substitutes,
Oh.
I believe.
Oh, I
You should
must
have
not
them
have-
on your desk.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Commendation number 158012023, commendation for Jane Hughes. Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept the resolution 15801, 2023 for the commendation for Jane Hughes.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 15901, 2023, commendation for Darren Putzer. Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept the resolution 15901, 2023 for the commendation for Darrell Putzer.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 16001, 2023, commendation for Andrew Ray. Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept the resolution 16001, 2023 for the commendation of Andrew Ray.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 16110, 2023, commendation for Greg Rothy. Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept the resolution 16101, 2023 for the commendation for Greg Rothy.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 16201, 2023, commendation for Tressa Nook. Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept the resolution 16201, 2023 for the commendation for Teresa Wook.
Made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 16301, 2023, commendation for Karen Witt. Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please accept the resolution 16301, 2023 for Karen Witt.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Resolution number 16401, 2023, authorize Sheriff's Office to accept $3,200 Wisconsin Emergency Management. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the approval of resolution number 010223.
And it was seconded. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to address my question to the sheriff, if I might. Thank you, Sheriff. Just a brief concern. I'm always concerned when civilian law enforcement utilizes military equipment. As I read this resolution, the Wisconsin Department of Military Affairs is where the grant is coming from. Does that mean that the scopes and other equipment are military, or are you going to buy them on the civilian market?
They'll be purchased on the civilian market. It's just how the grant works through Homeland Security, through Department of Military Affairs.
Okay, that's very good to hear. I did look up the scopes, and they are available for about $3,000, I believe, somewhere in there. So,
Yes.
Thank you for that
You're welcome.
explanation. I will support it based on that explanation. Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 16501, 2023, implementing pay differential for 24/7 operation at the Crisis Center, Child Welfare, Shelter Care, as well as 3 supervisors. Supervisor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve 165-012023 resolution, please.
Motion made and seconded.
If I can make a comment.
Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Resolution number 1660120, 2023, dissolve the Diversity Affairs Commission in its current form. Supervisor, let's see, I gotta wait. Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve Resolution 166-012023 to dissolve the Diversity Affairs Commission in its current form.
Do I hear a second? Seconded. Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In our reports from boards, committees, and commissions, we heard that the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee was going to be taking up a comprehensive review of all of our committees. Therefore, I will move to postpone this indefinitely and defer to the committee.
Motion's been made and seconded to defer this to committee.
To postpone indefinitely.
Postpone definitely. Postpone indefinitely. And we have a second. Second. We have a second. And it's non-debatable, correct?
No, it is, if it's postponing indefinitely.
Yes.
It is debatable.
Debatable. Supervisor Eisen on pardon?
No, separate.
Okay. Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I request a roll call vote.
Supervisor Harrison. Or Hanson, I'm sorry, Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you. This is on the motion to indefinitely postpone. I'm not in favor. Vote yea, vote nay, abstain, but we're here to vote and not consistently or get in the habit of just pushing things down the line.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This board has not had an opportunity to vote on the fate of the Diversity Affairs Commission. The commission itself has voted multiple times to dissolve itself, and I think we should respect that request. However, there have been a number of procedural impediments to that, and I think we should have an opportunity to have the say on this tonight, so I would urge everybody to vote no on postponing indefinitely.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Schellinger, would you consider postponing this until after the committee meets so that the county board could discuss it instead of indefinitely? No. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clarification on postponed indefinitely. Would this motion entail that this could not be brought up in any form until the next term with that procedure?
If you give me a minute, I just want to make sure of something here. The answer to the question is yes.
You want to go up to the microphone, please, and tell them what this means?
The motion to postpone indefinitely would mean that it would kill the motion till the next term.
Okay, thank you. And with that then, thank you. I'm just going to express concern that we would then essentially make a committee to a point where we, as an elected body, cannot go back to it and give any sort of scrutiny. And if there are issues, we're not able to address them. I think this is really dangerous precedent, basically bulletproofing any committee. I don't care what it is. So I want to make sure that this doesn't do that.
I want to be clear, it is the Diversity Affairs Commission. It is not a committee.
Sorry, commission.
Just so we're clear about that. Okay. So then when there was reference to referring it to judiciary for committee structure, this is not a committee, this is a commission. So.
Supervisor Bender.
Just for reference, the extension has worked with this committee for about the last 3 months, and we've done everything in our power to give them the support they need, but their only goal since the day they got elected was to disband. Right from the first meeting that they met, that was their goal, is to disband. They had no other goal other than to dissolve the commission. One of the previous members asked, this Catherine, why would you take an appointment to a commission when the only thing you want to do is dissolve it? I mean, I've got on many committees, and I'm always here to give you 110%, and I want to learn. When I went on the Land and Water, I didn't know much, but I basically researched, I listened to Supervisor Fari, I learned a lot in the 3 years I was on that committee. I never once went there thinking, well, this committee's useless, why don't we just get rid of it? You know, it's wrong. This committee isn't useless, and it needs to move forward, and we need to put a stop to this, because for the last 3 months, that's all this has been, is getting rid of the commission.
Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say a couple of things. In August, well, let me say that when I came on to the board, I understood that 2 people prior to myself had been asked from the UW Extension, Agriculture, and Education Committee had turned down doing this. I was approached and I said I would do it. There has to be a person on this commission who is a part of the UW Extension Committee, as I understand it. On August the 4th, in June, I joined this commission. We tried to have meetings. There were difficulties with that. Everything had been done online, and we were wanting to have in-person meetings. We had a difficult time coming up with a time when we could all get together, and in fact, we had one meeting where there was a mess because there were 2 Zoom places that we were supposed to go to, and it was almost canceled because there wasn't a quorum.
Yes? Yes?
Thank you.
Yes? Okay. You done? Okay. Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few meetings ago, I had a minor outburst about how we don't trust our committees and commissions and boards. We come here and we micromanage everything. We think we know better than the people who are working on this, on the ground, with the details. This comes to us with an 8-0 recommendation. We have a former liaison from the Fox Cities Extension who agrees with the disbanding. I know we all received the email from the chairman of this committee, which lays out a lot of redundancies in this commission. And for that reason, I think we owe it to them to vote on it, and we owe it to them not to put this off until 2024. Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move to postpone this, or actually, I'd like to refer this to the Judiciary Committee. The reason is that referral to a committee is a higher motion than postpone indefinitely. So you can entertain that, and if there's anyone that would like this to be referred to the Judiciary Committee, just second it. Then you won't have to postpone it indefinitely, and then you can get another hearing on this issue, and we can bring it back and solve it. To be honest with you, I had a notion to substitute Resolution 153 for this resolution, which was the December resolution from Supervisor Dowling to have the commission report to the board. But since that's not going to happen,
And we have died, it's lack of a second, so that's died also.
yeah, somebody seconded it.
I didn't hear anybody.
No. Oh,
Well, I was going to bring it back, but go ahead.
okay. Supervisor Eisen is correct. You can do a motion to refer if a motion to postpone indefinitely is on the floor. However, this is not a committee.
Right.
This is a commission. And therefore, if you were to refer this to any committee, including judiciary, it would be out of order.
You want to hold, push your button up, please. Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So help me understand within the definitions, commission versus committee first. And then second is if it's not JPS or whatever, would it be UW Extension Committee would be the proper referral?
Based on the bylaws that were created and associated with the Diversity Affairs Commission, the UW Extension Committee is the committee of jurisdiction. Now, the difference between a committee and a commission is that with a committee, the chairman appoints members. With a commission, the county executive is responsible for naming members to a commission. Does that answer your question?
It does. But where is that reflected in our rules?
It is referenced in Roberts, and quite frankly, I would need to look through the rules. I'm not sure. I know they talk about committees versus commissions, but I don't think there's a specific definition in our rules.
There isn't. We should.
That's another thing to take care of.
Thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
I'd like to call a question. That would be on the postpone.
Okay. All right, you're the last one, so the question has been called on the postponement indefinitely.
That's correct.
No, it was out of order.
Okay, just hold on.
No, it's not out of order.
So we have to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Vote on the postponement.
Okay. Right. She's gonna read it back here right shortly.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, well, we had to call the question. So the vote on the floor would be to refer it back to Judiciary and Public Safety.
No.
Because
No.
Supervisor,
No.
That's my question.
No.
And I had said you do not have jurisdiction because this is a commission. This is not a committee. But you seconded the motion to refer back.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I want to be on. Procedurally, if we vote yes, what happens? Nothing, because it's out
You
of
don't
order.
have, correct. You
So
were
why
out
are
of
we,
you
we're
were.
just voting just out of procedure?
We're still
Okay.
on Mr. Stillinger's.
We're not.
Why not?
I can rescind my second.
You can.
I rescind my second.
Supervisor Nichols?
Call the question on postponement.
Supervisor Nichols?
I'm, point of clarification, I heard a call the question. I don't remember if there was a second. Usually we vote on that first before we vote on the motion on the floor. So I just need to be clear on what we're voting on at this second,
Okay.
or right now.
As of right now, Supervisor Eisen, the motion, there was no second. It was pulled, so that one's off the floor.
I rescind it.
So, just hold on, we gotta let the secretary get caught up here so everything is right in their records.
okay. Postpone indefinitely. There was, there was no second.
There was
I
no
didn't hear a
second.
To call the question. So you're ready to vote? Right?
You got your second? You said there was no
Yes.
second?
For the call the question, there was no second. There's a second here, so.
Okay,
I'm gonna,
you wanna read it now, which one we're voting on, so everybody's got it right?
right now, you're voting on the move to postpone indefinitely. And Supervisor Nussbaum requested a recorded vote, so
So vote A if you're in favor of it, vote nay if you're not.
oh, my. Yeah. It failed. 13
That-
to 21.
That failed, 13 to 21. So we're back onto it now.
No, we would be back on the resolution to dissolve.
So now we're back on the resolution. Supervisor Eisen,
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome,
Back
Mr.
in the
Eisen.
saddle again. I oppose Resolution 166-012023, dissolve the Diversity Affairs Commission. This is an insensitive request to the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors at a time when what is needed is to improve upon Diversity Affairs Commission. I propose to amend Resolution 166-01023 by substituting Resolution number 153-122022. Sever the relationship between Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission and the UW Extension and Agricultural Committee, and require the commission to report directly to the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors.
Motion made and seconded. I gotta ask Mary Ann, can you do that? Okay. On the motion, was seconded. Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the amendment, I think this is a bit of something that I would say is probably redundant. I think what the Diversity Affairs Committee and the UW Extension staff are requesting us to do is to vote on the committee as it stands. As it stands. The commission as it stands, thank you. The way that this has been dragged out for months and months and months, I think we owe it to the members on that commission to have a vote on its current form. That's my point on the amendment.
Just a second. Sorry. It was Supervisor Eisen.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The problem with taking this away from a department and giving jurisdiction to those of us who are supervisors is you have no office staff taking minutes and sending out mailers and those sort of things. And I don't see Julie wanting to show up at every single meeting and taking minutes. You need to have somebody to provide office staff, office support. Thank you.
Some of your lights might have went out, just put them back on. Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out, I do appreciate Supervisor Eisen bringing forth this document. However, Resolution 153 is a document that I did not write and I did not authorize to be presented. I did email a copy of the actual document that was written. I'm not sure if that could be exchanged. It's probably too late. I just wanted to point out I did not write this. Thank you.
That's the one that was just handed to us?
Correct.
Yep. Supervisor Eisen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
your light was on yet. You're good?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bender.
Yeah, I submitted that as a substitute resolution for 166, and it's been seconded. So let's,
Okay.
irrespective of the origin, it stands as it has been submitted to provide an alternative to the county board for dissolving the Diversity Affairs Commission. You don't want to do that.
Supervisor Bender.
I just want to say in the budget, we passed the health and well-being educator, and that person should be starting sometime in March, and that part of their job is to work with the Diversity Affairs Commission out of the Extension Office. I can't believe this commission would want to basically disband before they even get to work with the new person that's being hired to help them. It's like, we worked 1.5 years on that to get that commission where it was. Supervisor Norton and I got taken off of it, and the only goal they had since the day they got elected was to disband it. What are they afraid of? People are going to get some voice in the community? I mean, it's like they're afraid of something. The rainbow posters, the Black Lives Matters posters, what are they afraid of? I don't know. But, you know, I was looking at a place in Corpus Christi, and it's 64% Hispanics. For the first time in my life, I wondered how I would feel when I was the minority. You know, am I going to be accepted there? I don't know. You know, but I can't believe that we basically don't want to give people a fair shake at what we see in society. I mean, we judge people by how they look, by what they do, instead of basically just judging them for who they are. I mean, when the homeless shelters, nobody wanted the homeless shelter over by the entertainment district. Nobody wanted small houses over by the dog kennel. It's like they're people. They need a place to go just like everybody else. And this commission's job is to basically educate people, to treat people equally, not to pass judgment on them. You look in the mirror, we all got sins. We all got things we're ashamed of. So, you know, why we always have to basically go to like disbanding a committee that's only trying to do good. This committee has done a lot of good in a year and a half it was in progress. We started with like 30-some people on the input, and at the end we had 80. So I hope this doesn't get disbanded and that we basically don't throw this away and we can continue to help people that definitely need our help.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the motion we're on right now, which is the substitution, does everyone know what it says? So I think we need to, all of us need to see what we're going to be voting in on before we vote. So I don't know what that means, if we could, someone could print this or if someone could read it into the record. But I do believe that in order for us to vote properly, we need to know what we're voting on. Thank you.
You want to read it into the record? Melanie, you want to read it into the record?
No, I was going to print it. Do you want me to read this whole thing?
Sure.
I can't. Okay, I am going to read the resolution 153, 12/2022, as it was just presented to me.
153. Well, that isn't what
Okay.
it says, though. It's 2022.
Oh, the 166 up on the screen is what it's referring back to that one, so that when I have my notes later, I know which one is with which one. Okay, so the resolution is to sever the relationship between the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission and the UW Education Extension Agriculture Committee and require the commission to report directly to the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. To the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors, whereas the mission statement of the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commissions is to embrace diversity, inclusion, and belonging by bringing the community together to listen to one another, learn together, and encourage our community to act in ways that help people thrive. We support justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and whereas the purpose of the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission is to create an equitable and inclusive Winnebago County that fosters thriving communities for all who reside and work in Winnebago County, and will make every effort to treat all people with the same respect we expect to receive. And whereas pursuant to Resolution 107, 12/2020, the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission is to be accountable to the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee, and whereas the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission bylaws mandate that the Extension liaison shall attend meetings and provide connection to university resources, serve as a facilitator when requested, be engaged as a technical advisor, and work to coordinate all educational and outreach efforts of the Commission. This position is not elected and shall serve as needed in partnership with the steering committee. The Extension liaison shall be responsible for reporting to the overseeing UW Education, Extension, and Agriculture Committee 3 times per calendar year, and whereas the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission bylaws provide that the steering committee shall be comprised of 5 members of the public who live in Winnebago County, a Winnebago County Board Supervisor selected at large, and a Winnebago County Board Supervisor who serves on the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee. And whereas having to choose one supervisor from the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee does not leave room for the best qualified Winnebago County Board Supervisor to serve on the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission, and whereas it would be advantageous for the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission to work with a variety of committees and commissions within Winnebago County, and as such, the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission should report directly to the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. Now therefore be it resolved by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that the relationship between the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission and the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee will be severed, and the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission will report directly to the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors. And there's no fiscal impact.
I have a question of the corporate counsel. Can they report just to us? Don't they have to go through the the county executive. He appoints these people.
The county executive does appoint the commission. But again, per your rules, any supervisor can bring a resolution however they fashion it. And Supervisor Eisen is now bringing forth this resolution 153. So, and he is asking that essentially the commission report directly to the Board of Supervisors. But again, commissions report directly to the county executive. So yes, he can make a resolution, but I would say that it is improper given the fact that the commission reports to the county executive.
Thank you. Supervisor Gabbard.
So most confusing here, but is it legal to pull back in a resolution that we've already had as an amendment to a resolution that we're voting on? Because 153, if I'm not mistaken, Supervisor Dowling, it's changed from what was presented to us that you pulled because it wasn't what you had written. So now we're bringing A 153 as a amendment. To me, this is kind of like we are convoluting what we're going for here. I don't know that this can be a clean vote and it's a legal vote, so I'm confused. So it's not that I'm against the resolution, but it isn't what was pulled, and now it's been revised, maybe by you or maybe by Eisen. But it's coming back forward, and we already had dealt with 153 last month. So I'm wondering, is this right? Because it's gonna sway my vote.
Sure. So the reason I originally pulled the resolution was because it was not even considered by the Diversity Affairs Commission to begin with. We are planning on discussing it at our meeting on Monday. The other reason I pulled the resolution is that the words that you see in front of you right now are not the words that I wrote, not even close. There is a lot of flaws in the document. It sounds very aggressive also, and it did not convey my initial intentions. And I don't think it conveyed the accountability I was going for. So that's why I pulled it. I not asked for it to be submitted to the county board for review. That was done so without my consent. So the document that we're looking at now, Resolution 153, should have never seen the day of light, so to speak. So I am not comfortable voting for it at this time.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I look on, because I'm actually looking at the substitute resolution, if I look at line 38, the last part of it, it says, will report directly to. Would it be in Corporation Counsel, in what you were saying, it would probably be more accurate to say the jurisdiction goes from the UW committee to the board, not necessarily directly report. It's who has, for the county board, who has that jurisdiction. Would that be a better way of, I'm not suggesting, I'm not making any changes, I'm just trying to understand.
Again, with your rules, which allow supervisors to bring forth any resolution, yes, I agree with you. I think, again, if this were to pass, it would be saying that if the board so chose, the board would be essentially listening to any concerns. But again, I want to go back to the fact that this is a commission and it goes back to the county executive. And we have to stay in our lanes. That's what.
Agreed. And just one other comment really quick. Again, this feels like this should be more of a committee conversation, not a board conversation. So, thank you.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given that we don't we all don't have a copy of 153 tonight. And the county board seems a bit indecisive on which direction to go here. I move to refer Resolution 153 that's on the floor to the Diversity Affairs Commission for their review.
Second already on the floor, don't we? Isn't there? Isn't there a motion made and seconded already on the floor? We already have a motion made and seconded on the floor. No what?
They have to be referred back
Right.
to the Diversity Affairs Commission.
Right.
Because right now, as we stand here, UW Extension is the committee of jurisdiction.
Right. But we also have a motion made and seconded on the floor, don't we?
What is your current motion?
The current one that I have is to substitute 153 for 166.
That's the original motion, and you do have a second, I do believe too, don't you? Motion made and seconded on the floor.
Yes.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. We've got to get this worked out. We got too many commissions and too many boards and.
County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org.
Discussion, looking at everything. What we are going to be voting on at this time will be resolution number 166, with a motion made and seconded. Motion by Supervisor Eisen, second by Supervisor Borchardt, adding the wording, not resolution 150, but adding the wording coming in, put that into there.
And just to clarify, Resolution 153 was pulled in December. It was never considered by the board. So it's a piece of paper. It's not a resolution. So Supervisor Eisen wants to use the language that was on that piece of paper and put it in 166. Is that correct, Supervisor Eisen? Correct. And that's, okay. And so now Chairman Egan rules on that.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution and the original commission, as they stand, both fit into my comments right here. Is how are we avoiding the redundancies with human services and human resources and other groups within the county? How is this group filling in the gaps where those places might miss? I took our time during our recess to actually go back and talk with the chairman of the diversity committee, and Mr. Longzine said this isn't trying to kill the committee, this is trying to restart it. To restart it with a proper mission and restart it with a proper goal. And I don't think we can sit here in this room and decide how that goes and where all the gaps are and where the spots it needs to fill in within our county are. So I think we need to consider all of that as well. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that this amendment offered by Supervisor Eisen doesn't achieve anything. The only thing that we're going to have is we're going to have a Diversity Affairs Commission that views its work as completed, and rightly so, that goes up against various other committees, commissions, and boards that think the opposite way. Effectively, this is not a conversation about diversity at all. This is a conversation about people's pet projects and a conversation about where we should dedicate county time, resources, personnel, and money. I think at this current time, these conversations about diversity can be very aptly held at committees, commissions, and boards such as the Board of Health, the Human Services Board, the UW Extension Committee if that's apt. So I'm voting no on this substitution amendment. I don't think it achieves the necessary goal. I think it doesn't really do anything. It just creates more confusion. So I'm a no. Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Yeah, thank you. Supervisor Hintz said he wants to restart the commission. Well, why don't they just send it back to their committee and restart it and bring in a decent resolution that replaces the 166? I have the 153 as a replacement because it's something to replace it, not to dissolve it. Restart it.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Echo Supervisor Eisen's comments there, but my comments or questions would be that Supervisor Binder stated that during the end of his tenure on the commission that there was upwards into 80 people participating in the commission. And my question would maybe be to the folks that were on there recently. I mean, were you seeing that sort of attendance the last couple months? I mean, that 80 folks at one of these commissions seems like pretty good participation. How do we grow in our community? What kind of community do we want to live in? Do we want to listen to folks? That sounded like a pretty good deal going on there. So I don't know who could answer that question, but I'm just wondering about the attendance since the new folks took over. Thank you.
Supervisor Zestero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say that as Corp Counsel had mentioned, I'm taking out of context, maybe we need to stay in our lane. And as a county, I think that we need to just stay in our lane. We have human resources, we've got ADRC, the school boards, human services, UW Extension. The 80 people, from what I understand, first of all, that was during hours that the general public couldn't attend. And out of those 80 people, I don't have the exact stats, but a lot of those were actual employees of the county, or employees in general. We are not, I've heard it said that we don't care, that we want to disband it. It's because we want to stay in our lane. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
This is more of a point of order for Corporation Counsel and the people who still may be confused in the room. For Corporation Counsel, if this amendment, the substitution amendment with the language from Supervisor Eisen fails, do we revert back to 166 as originally authored?
Yes.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other lights. We're going to go ahead. And this will be resolution 166, but it'll be replaced with 153, not the resolution, because that was never brought, just the writing on this piece of paper, which I know some of you didn't get.
Mike?
Who? Did you have something, Mike?
No,
You want us-
I-
No, okay,
it is-
all right.
You have to vote.
So all those in favor of that signify by, or, push A. I know. Push A if you're in favor of it, push nay if you're not.
Failed. Failed, 11 to 23.
And that failed. So we're back on the original.
Yes.
So it's 166, dissolve the Diversity Affairs Commission in its current form. Supervisor Flom.
Chairman Egan, I request, I'm sorry, I call the question for Resolution 166 as originally authored.
Motion been made and seconded.
Move to lay on the table until the end of the meeting.
Point of order.
Just hold on. Corporate Counsel? Let's just, everybody has their turn.
The motion to lay on the table is appropriate. However, it enables an assembly to lay a pending question aside temporarily when something else of immediate urgency has arisen, or when something else needs to be addressed before consideration of the pending question. I'm looking at Robert's rules, and it does say, in ordinary assemblies, the motion to lay on the table is not in order if the evident intent is to kill or avoid dealing with a measure.
Okay. So that's out of order then. That's out of order then at this time.
Okay.
So now you gotta call the question, and we'll Flom and Hintz. So that Supervisor Flom said I'd call the question, and I have seconded by Hintz.
Right.
So we have to vote on that.
We have to go ahead and see if there's any, so is that debatable?
Okay, Supervisor Flom called the question. Yes. It was seconded by Supervisor Hintz. Yes. Does that stop all debate? We have to vote on that call the question.
Yes, she had raised lay on the table, which could have been raised, but again,
Oh, it's
The chairman-
Supervisor Flom's.
notice that it's not appropriate. So
Right.
yes, you vote on what Supervisor Flow.
Just calling the question.
No debate though. No debate.
There's no debate.
Okay.
Point of order. Come on now.
There's a motion on the floor and seconded.
Point of order succeeds that, Mr. Chairman.
Corporate Counsel,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the chairman's judgment to go ahead with that motion. There are 6 people that want to speak.
right? I haven't done anything yet.
Well, it's your judgment whether to accept that motion or not. Thank you.
I'm going to let you all speak, every one of you. Supervisor Nussbaum,
I was going to call a question.
we've got it already. Supervisor Bender,
I would just like to say, I'd like to lay it over until the next meeting so that the Diversity Affairs Commission can talk this over. None of these people, one person on here is from the Diversity Affairs Commission. The rest of them are all just supervisors, the same as the rest of us. Rachel Dowling said that they were gonna discuss it at their next meeting, which is next week. Why wouldn't we give the Diversity Affairs Commission? The chairman said that he wants to redo the committee. Maybe they have a different idea how to bring this back to us. I'm willing to basically give them a chance to show us what they want to do. I don't think that's asking too much to give them a week, and next month, if you want to get rid of the commission, get rid of it. I mean, is a month going to hurt?
Supervisor Gordon.
I was just going to point out that if the members of the Diversity Affairs Commission are unhappy being on the commission, perhaps they should resign and others should be appointed. It just seems to me that perhaps the members are the ones that are the problem and not the commission itself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank goodness Martin Luther King Day was yesterday. But today is the 7th Annual National Day of Racial Healing, and here we are. I took some time earlier today to watch some of the earlier, like 2021 versions of the Diversity Affairs Commission meetings that are posted front page of Winnebago County website, and it was refreshing to see conversation in a collaborative, open fashion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts work towards creating a just and equitable society for all. They provide an opportunity for residents, for business owners, for employers, and even government to participate in and support these efforts. But participation is not required. It's not mandatory for you to participate. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Why do some people feel the need to take the opportunity away from others? Approving this resolution sends the message that Winnebago County is an unwelcoming place to work, an unwelcoming place to live, an unwelcoming place to have a business, an unwelcoming place to raise a family. I will vote no.
Supervisor Hanson.
I thank Supervisor Nichols for what she said. I hear that. I don't see that approving this resolution kills any conversation. I refer to lines 13 and 14. It also says in its current form, and because of those lines and that verbiage, because of current laws that are already in place, 1983 lawsuits, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it can go into other areas in this county. I will be voting in favor of this resolution.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate all the discussion tonight. So I guess I'll render my opinion. I voted for this Diversity Affairs Commission when it was first established. And I realize that it has had some difficulties proceeding. Part of that, in my judgment, was because of the situation with the coordinator, if that's a correct term, that left that position and went to a different position somewhere else. So that kind of leaves the commission in flux. And it's witnessing the flux is here tonight, what we're talking about. I suggest that we continue to allow the commission to go forward. We have a new person coming into UW Extension. Perhaps that person will take a strong initiative to pull things together and make this an effective commission. I will most certainly be voting no on this resolution. Thank you.
Supervisor Zastira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I understand where people are coming from that, might be on the other side of the issue. I will be supporting this. I think that the actions of the DAC should be under the executive branch of Winnebago County. I think that we have no lack of options right now to make sure that people have a voice for diversity, equity, and inclusion matters. Our community, public, private, et cetera, has lots of options for that. And Mandy Dornfeld, who was the former liaison from UW Extension, said at one point, "It has come to my attention that the plan of some of the commission members is to recommend the dissolution of this committee." She said, "I've met with John Damel about this information, and based upon all the things I've shared, I completely agree with the recommendation." Thank you.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to address Supervisor Buck's question, I believe it was, as far as attendance. The last meeting, educational meeting we had for the public was on September 1st of 2022. We had 40 people in attendance. Out of the 40 people in attendance, 25 of those were employees of Winnebago County. So that was shocking for me to see personally. I have no opinions on the DAC. I requested to be on the committee. Mandy Dornfield left assisting us in August of 2022. Chris View from the UW Extension was asked to help and step in and fill the role. However, Chris has not attended our last 2 meetings, nor did he send a representative to help. We have no strategic plan in place. Nothing was set up for us past 2022. We have no support staff from Winnebago County. Part of the resolution I was trying to write was to help ease that. We would like to choose from the entire pool of the 36 supervisors sitting with me tonight. I feel like that would be the best way to approach this going forward. We have not had time to do that. I've tried to rewrite the DAC bylaws, hoping that this would bring a new positive direction for the DAC. The estimated time to do so is about 8 months. I've also tried suggesting new educational events for the DAC, but again, without any support from Winnebago County staff, kind of steering the ship by myself. So I'm at a loss of what to do. I'm exhausted.
Supervisor Horan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few things to say about this. There was a SOAR event that was supposed to happen as one of the educational programs, and as I understand it, with the new rules, 22.11, when we had to do Zoom meetings and we had to record, and those recordings had to be available to the community, the person who was giving this program was a parent who was talking about her child, and she chose not to have that child videotaped for life on the internet. This happened, and this person was told about it about 10 minutes before she was supposed to speak. When we talk about Mandy Dornfield, she was the person who had to make the call to the parent and to the person who had organized this educational program. And they had to go about, they had like 40 to 50 minutes to finally get it recognized that this parent did not want that child on a recording. One of the problems that we have as a county board is that rule which says that everything has got to be recorded. There are any number of people who are part of the Board of Health, the Human Services Department, the UW Extension, Human Services, who do not have to record any of their meetings. But because it comes from the county board, we have to record those. That is an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hanson.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not sure if Supervisor Nussbaum's motion carries forward to Resolution 166. A roll call vote on this, please.
I'm having a real hard time with this one myself because I got a lot of emails and the majority of them all said to disband it. I listened to you all and I can understand where you're coming from. There's nothing worse. If there's someone out there that we can help, we should be helping them. Do we have to have this commission to help them? No, it just showed when this the center closed out here and we had that bad snowstorm and everything, we pitched in. So it isn't that just this commission. I'm not saying whether we should or shouldn't, but it's not just this commission. It's Winnebago County, period. And that's what we gotta learn. It's just Winnebago County. Now, whether it has to be this commission, I don't know. I've listened to both sides tonight, and as you see, I was really thinking hard. I watched Mr. Bender, and he has a passion for it. I can just see that. And I would listen to some of the rest of them. They do, but they don't. So when you go ahead and vote tonight, really think about it. I think the question that we've got to realize isn't the political end of it. Does this commission need to go on to do that job, or is there other ones in the county that can take this over and still help out on it? That's what we need to do. We have to really look at that. They have a commission board or whatever. I don't know if it's completely full or not. I know that some's been, we just appointed one. We just appointed Mrs. Stafford here last month. So we know that it's pretty full, so if it's not completely full. So our question tonight isn't whether it's good or bad or whatever, because it's always good when we're helping people. The question is if the group, this commission has to be in place to do what they are supposed to do with their bylaws and everything. And like we just heard from Supervisor Dowling, the bylaws and that, you know, is she the only one working on them? I take it for granted, or she wouldn't be telling us that. So are we missing out some other place? So we know what money was just put in for the budget and that. Supervisor Bender brought that up. So that's the question I'm going to just relay on to you now. If you're in, we will take a recorded vote. And if you wish to have to continue, vote A. Let's see, no, we better do it the right way. It says if you want to disband it, you'll vote A. If you don't want to dissolve it, you'll vote nay. So we're voting dissolve the Diversity Affairs Commission in current form. So if you're for that, vote A. If you're not, vote nay. And that passes 19-14. Okay, before I go any farther, I'm going to read this in. Supervisor Cox wants his name removed from all of the ARPA resolutions, 167 through 174. So if Supervisor Cox's name is on there, he wants them taken off. All right. Resolution on there? Am I missing one?
Call on him at all then?
Huh?
Are you gonna call on him at all for any of those resolutions to bring them forward?
I'll pick somebody else out. Okay, resolution number 167-012-2023, create a spirit fund, transforming surplus funds from the general fund Parkview. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution 167-01-2023.
Motion made and seconded. Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I just go back to what I heard from at the beginning? Mr. Harris from the public made a comment. Could that be clarified, please, as to what his concerns were? Oh, my apologies. Retracted.
Retracted, okay. Supervisor Depperding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is where I'm not going to be a lot of people's friends. I'm going to be voting a no on a lot of these forthcoming resolutions, simply because I want to take a firmly principled stance in regards to ARPA dollars. I don't think that this is. I think this is still going to continue to create a fiscal cliff for Winnebago County, as much as there are certainly pet projects that we want to work on, that we want to build and spend money on. I definitely think that the Winnebago County should live within our means, and it is our duty to serve our constituents, to make sure that the county lives within its means, fiscally speaking. So I'll be voting no on a lot of these resolutions. Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm against taking the money from Parkview and putting it back in the general fund. Creating the Spirit Fund is okay with me, but I don't like the idea of taking money from Parkview. I had a constituent who spoke to me a few weeks ago about the conditions at Parkview, and was quite concerned about patient care or lack thereof, low employment. 3.5 neighborhoods are closed because of lack of staff. While we gave nurses, the nursing staff, and those with direct patient, with direct patient care, an increase. Others who work there did not receive that, and some of them are working the job of 2 people and being expected to take on a third. If there's money that was transferred into Parkview, we need to leave it there and increase the pay. I'm speaking on this somewhat personally because I'm of an age where I'm getting close to turning to that age where I'm going to need a healthcare facility. And at the other end, I have a granddaughter who is in her freshman year at Marquette University, in the School of Nursing. So she's going to become a nurse. So I'd like to see her have a decent salary. I'd like to make sure I've got nurses who are going to take good care of me and who are being compensated appropriately. Thank you.
Supervisor Norton.
Mr. Collard, you gave me the information to contact our auditor, and I emailed her and asked her what other counties are doing this, and she could not name one. And I guess, do you know any counties that are doing this type of way of handling the money?
Well, I think the answer, Supervisor Norton, depends on what you mean by doing this. Are there other counties that are claiming ARPA funds as compensation or replacement of lost revenue? Yes, I think that's very common.
So how about putting them in and naming them to a completely different fund called Spirit or whatever in that county? She didn't give me one county.
I believe that most counties who are using the ARPA dollars as replacement of lost revenue are then just keeping the money in their general fund, and then they can spend it how and when they wish without segregating it as a separately titled fund. It was the specific recommendation of our auditor that if we do that, we not put the ARPA name on the new fund that we resegregate it through. And I believe the intention, or as I understand it, the will of the ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission is to keep that money, or resegregate that money, if you will, in a separate fund so that we can account for it and at the end of the day, list how the money was eventually spent rather than just commingling it with general fund dollars, which I think is the more common procedure.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've sat in a lot of these meetings with the ARPA committee or commission. And every time I go in there, I say we do not mingle the funds and make a Chinese wash out of this. We're not putting money in and taking somebody else's money out. We're not going to put it into the general fund, and we're not going to take it out of the general fund. That should have been a separate issue, and it should have stayed a separate issue. On top of that, we're dealing with CIP projects, okay? The projects from which we put money into to set up. And that money has to come out of those projects if you're going to take ARPA funds and fund them. And that money should go back into the general fund. But we're not going to start washing the money between ARPA or between Spirit Fund and the general fund. That does not seem right or correct, and I think somebody's going to take a good look at it.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In lines 31 through 35 of the resolution, we define what these Spirit Fund monies are to be utilized for, I believe. And then I find myself asking, is that in line with, in Mr. Collard's agenda item report, page 11, that discusses the U.S. Treasury's list of what ARPA funds should be utilized for? Are we quite sure that what we defined in lines 31 through 35 match up with the intent of the U.S. Treasury's utilization? Now, I understand you're changing this fund, and we've redefined these funds, but in the spirit of ARPA, are we, as we redefine what we're going to use these funds for, some of the items include soft costs and, maybe not just capital expenditures, items that could see these funds rapidly utilized. So I want to make sure that, what you're going to spend this money on and is in line with what the U.S. Treasury designated. And also, do the resolutions we're about to vote for after this upcoming represent what we've defined in lines 31 through 35? Thank you.
Yes. Lines 31 through 35 are taken verbatim from the ARPA statute.
Okay.
So which sets out 4 categories of matters on which ARPA funds can be spent. The 4th category is the one we've actually used under ARPA, which is replacement of lost public sector revenue. So obviously we didn't include that here. But otherwise, numbers 1 through 3 are verbatim, word for word, the ones that come from the federal government. And the second part of the question are the other resolutions after this one on the agenda, reflective of these purposes. And I say yes, there is a lot of commentary and discussion in the final rule from the Treasury Department interpreting and expanding on these things. And so all of these projects, I'm confident, are well within the scope of those rules.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, I think, just ask a question of either Doug or Lindsay from Parkview. I assume that's why you've endured the last 3 hours of this. But if you wouldn't mind just maybe telling the board a little bit about the $15.2-ish million that are being transferred into and out of the Parkview Health Center Fund, if there's any implications for Parkview operations or anything else that the board should be aware of with this transfer.
Okay, so from what I understand, they're using our wages for 2020 and 2021 to cover the $15 million. And they'd use that to show that we've spent that much money. So what's going to happen is at the end of 2022, they're going to transfer in the $15 million into our account. At the end of 22, January of 23, they'll pull that money out. I didn't learn about this resolution until last Thursday when Mr. Cox informed me that it was coming through and found out that this was going to happen. I'm not exactly sure what the impact on Parkview, the supplemental payments that we get from the state. They're based on a couple different calculations, and they changed the calculations this year. So I do have a question into our county auditors, also to our state auditor that comes into the state cost report. I have those questions out to them. I haven't heard back from either one of those yet on implications on what could change if possibly we'd lose all of our supplemental payment funding. Supplemental payment funding for the year of 2022 is about $2.4 million. 23 is going to be roughly $3 million. Based on the calculations, I'm not sure. It could affect it none, or we might lose it all.
Thank you. That's new information for me, and also something that is pretty alarming, I think. If we potentially stand to lose $4 or $5 million, or whatever it could amount to, that's a pretty substantial impact on Parkview's funding, and a substantial part of this money that seems to be washed through these funds for us to lose. I think I'm going to vote no for this now. I think I was going to vote yes, but that's going to make me a no. I just don't think we can risk losing that kind of money until we know what might happen for Parkview's other government funding. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to direct my question to Director Collard. Based off of, and kind of dovetailing off the question that Supervisor Schellinger had, from your analysis, do you think that this is something that Parkview could stand to get damaged on? Are we certain that this is something that the auditors from the state and the feds won't come back and bite us on? I know you've done your research of this. I just want to be ironclad sure that we're clear of liabilities and that this won't hurt Parkview in the long term if we go ahead and make this decision.
All right. Well, I did consult with our auditor about this before submitting for consideration Resolution 110 of 10/2022. And so a lot of the comments made recently are really related to that, the resolution the board passed last October, because that's the one that actually allocated this money to the general fund departments and to Parkview as recognition of replacement of lost revenue. So I understand that Mr. Petrozek has consulted also I believe he's got on his list one more auditor than I consulted. And I would say this: if that auditor or any credible authority comes back and says you're going to be in danger of losing state funding if this proceeds, then I've discussed that with our auditor, and what we would do is come back with a repair resolution, which actually wouldn't change the resolution on the table tonight. It would change Resolution 110 from October last year and identify different expenses. Because that really is just a bookkeeping move. The objective was to identify expenses that wouldn't cause us any trouble. We have a variety of expenses to pick from. Maybe we should have also found expenses that were all in 2022 rather than 2021, which will save us some money on doing that audit, that compliance audit that our same auditor firm does. That can be fixed any time up until I think June of this year. So if we get different opinions from auditors suggesting that some of that is at risk, we certainly won't let that stand. We'll bring that back to the board, and it can be repaired later.
Okay, so you're sure that a budget repair resolution would kind of be our magic wand to cure all in case we do find ourselves in any hot water with reporting or with any sort of guidelines that may change or clawbacks even?
Would you say, are you sure? I have a high degree of confidence.
Are we kind of taking a leap of faith?
It's not just a leap of faith.
Okay.
We've discussed that. I see no reason it couldn't be done. If the board approves such a resolution, I don't see a problem with that. That's my opinion, and I'm fairly confident in it. There's always some uncertainty dealing with several levels of government at the same time and a complicated set of regulations, but I don't think any of those moves would be controversial. And frankly, the alternative is to just leave it where it is in the funds and then spend it later. I guess then the ARPA Commission is done anyway.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Here goes. So, am I correct in assuming from reading this that there isn't a money, $15,213,450 is just being declared as the losses that Parkview Health Center had to label part of that $33,399,18? It isn't going into, part of the ARPA money isn't going into Parkview Health Fund and then being pulled out. You're just labeling as a loss that can be declared by paperwork, or are you putting that 15 in Parkview, as Doug said, and then pulling it back out and putting it in the Spirit Fund? That's my first question. How is that card shuffle going? Because right now, it sounds like a card shuffle, so I'm trying to get past
It,
all
it is
that.
really just a paper transaction or a set of paper transactions. But just to correct one thing, we're not saying that Parkview lost that money. The Treasury Department gives us a formula by which it says we can use to calculate a presumed lost revenue. And part of the problem here is it's counterintuitive because we didn't really lose that much revenue. I'm not saying we did. But the federal government says we can use this formula and say this is lost revenue. So under that formula, we can clearly claim the whole 33 million. I have the calculation, I've got spreadsheets, I followed all the federal regulations, I went to seminars, I'm confident of that calculation, and it doesn't seem to be controversial in that most counties can actually claim, or something like 2/3 of counties under that formula could claim it all as lost revenue. But then, once we do that, then the regulations say we can then use that replacement of lost revenue to pay for anything that we might have paid with this mythical revenue that we might have received but didn't. So that can be any general governmental expense. That's actually the phrase used in the regulations. We can use it to pay for any general government expense incurred after March 3rd, 2021. So it has to be essentially within the last 2 years or in the future. So in October, the resolution passed by the board did that. It said we're using this formula, it's lost revenue. We're then allocating this money to substitute for other money we use to pay various expenses. And I identified labor costs in general fund departments and in Parkview as being areas where I was confident we'd have more than $33 million of expense that we could fairly easily identify and point to the specific expense for reporting purposes, and that wouldn't impact any other compliance issues for other grants.
So you're not stealing the money from Parkview?
No.
Because it was just a description of a loss factor by the documents that the federal government gave you. So, okay, so I
Right.
get that, all right.
So on paper, we've basically already put that money in the general fund and Parkview fund, and by this, we'd be taking it back out again, the same money, but it's all just paper transactions. We're not.
But we aren't touching their fund, the Parkview fund of money. You know, their
Correct.
contingency or whatever.
Yeah,
We're not touching that.
We're not touching the previous fund balance at Parkview.
Right. Okay, so now my question is, the rules have changed so many times with the ARPA money, but even our little township is saying we gotta show that we had lost revenue. Are we changing the description from ARPA funds to Spirit to allow us to do more things with the money? Meaning we don't have to be reporting, or are you still gonna report under the Spirit Fund for the forthcoming resolutions that we have before us tonight?
We would not have any obligation or need to report.
Recording in progress.
To report use of the Spirit Fund to the Treasury Department. I will report by the end of this month to the Treasury Department our usage of the lost revenue to pay for these expenses, and then our reporting obligation to the federal government is done.
And people ask you, are you sure this is the way the rules are gonna go? Nothing's sure, but as of today, this is what you know. The ARPA funds have to be retitled to give us more leeway to do projects, correct?
See, the auditor recommended not continuing to call it the ARPA fund because something labeled ARPA, anyone looking at that will think it ought to be audited under the ARPA rules, and it isn't. It doesn't need to be anymore. So just to show that separation from the ARPA reporting requirements so that the compliance audit on behalf of the federal government doesn't confuse the two things.
So we have an ARPA commission who's been working on this stuff diligently. We have to trust someone that knows what they're doing because we said everything has to come before this county board that has to do with the ARPA money. So I trust your opinion because I know you read and you read and you read and you look into and you look into. So I don't know who else we can trust for the rules, but you seem to have a handle on it. this, we probably shouldn't have even gotten this money, because money does funny things to governments, people, and all that stuff. But we have it. You're trying to do the best you can to title it what it is. I just don't want people to think we're stealing Parkview money, because we're not stealing this 15 million, because they weren't gonna get this 15 million. Or are you saying, well, we could have given it to them?
No, that's correct. They wouldn't have the 15 million if we hadn't passed that resolution in October.
Okay, so I'm gonna let it rest at that. Thank you.
Supervisor Buck. Oshkosh Media is Zoom, putting on Zoom right now, because the other part isn't working, so it's all on Zoom if you want to go to it. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube, I'm sorry. Oshkosh Media on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yo. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just a comment. I'm on the ARPA Commission, and we've had some spirited debates. You know, to my recollection, and maybe Supervisor Cox or Supervisor Egan or Farr, you can jump in on this, but, you know, taking it out of the Parkview Fund, I mean, I believe it was talked about, but it's a little surprising to me that, you know, but Director Collard, you know, Doug didn't know this was happening until last Thursday. So to me, it's just a little surprising. If I'm running a department, I guess I would like to know if something was going to affect my department. So, you know, just we're on the ARPA Commission, we're working through this, but I agree there's a lot of clouds surrounding this, and, you know, I do believe that Director Collard is doing the best they can. So just, you know, I just think moving forward, when departments are affected by these things, that we should be transparent and communicating with their department heads. That's all. Thank you.
This was passed by the board before, correct? It isn't like it just happened.
Yes, I think that crucial step was passed by the board in October last year, yeah.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm taking note of what Supervisors Defferny, Schellinger, and Gabbard said, as well as Supervisor Buck. I'm still weighing this particular resolution, and apologies to everyone, especially county clerks, staff. Is it possible to request resolutions 167 through 74 be done on a roll call vote? Or would I need to make that motion for each and every one?
I can see that it's done. Thank you. Supervisor Cox.
Nobody's convinced me that this isn't just a wash of money, taking it from one place and putting it into another, and then bringing it back. Whether it's in Parkview or it's in the general fund, you're taking it and you're putting it in there temporarily so that then you can take it back out via the programs or projects that we have in line. And yet, you forget that the CPI, the capital project or the capital improvement plan has projects in there from last year. Now, I know that Paul Kaiser had made up a new capital improvement plan, but I've taken a look at both of them together. The ranking is terrible because some of them have been spliced in where they don't belong. But the capital improvement plan in each one of the cases of, say, the IT program, where they're doing fiber optic, we've already put money in there. We've budgeted it in. We've passed a resolution. We have actually moved a budget transfer into them for them. The same thing with the whatever $80,000 that went for the generator for the expo center. That was started already, and that money should be moved back into the general fund without any problem. And then the ARPA fund kick in if you're going to use that as an ARPA project. We should go through these capital improvement plans, both of them side by side, and figure out what we really are going to be doing there, what we need to take out and what we need to put in. But we should not be mingling both ARPA money and general fund money or undesignated money and the Parkview money for various reasons. Well, I don't think we've ever looked at it really closely. I don't know that you have the lost revenue handle on each line item. Okay? And so we're not in there to wash money. We shouldn't be in there to wash money. But that's what it's starting to look like. I won't be voting for this. I'll be abstaining my vote for this and any other project or resolution that has dealt with this.
Supervisor Eisen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make reference to Mr. Collard's statement that we will be making our report to the U.S. Treasury at the end of the month, reporting and justifying the revenue replacement factor, which the board approved on the June 30th calculation. Today we are asked to approve the Spirit Fund, but the documentation supporting that will not be reported to the Treasury until the 31st of January. There's a problem.
Supervisor Bender.
Just so the new county board members know that Doug used to be our assistant finance director, and I take what he says very serious. And when he says we have a chance of losing $2 to $4 million from the state in reimbursements because we're transferring this money in and out of that Parkview fund, I won't be voting for it until somebody can tell me 100% sure that's not going to happen.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Supervisor Bender and the other folks who have questioned or who have questions about this Parkview Health Center fund. I'm glad that the finance director from Parkview is here this evening to bring this issue to the fore. And I think it is incumbent upon this board to make sure that whatever action it takes does not negatively affect Parkview. Parkview is a real asset to Winnebago County. Not many counties have nursing homes anymore. I personally know at least 2 people who have received excellent care in recent years there, and we need to be sure that we don't do anything that would jeopardize their operations and funding. I'm also looking back at the resolution from October that we passed, and that resolution states that the Winnebago County Board hereby identifies expenses incurred and paid in the form of regular wages in the following general fund departments: sheriff, coroner, emergency management, parks, information systems, and facilities and property management, and in Parkview Health Center as general government services, which have been funded through use of ARPA and SLFRF funds, and recognizes in those departments in amounts totaling $33,390,000. But yet in this resolution, it only says, in the resolution before us, it doesn't list any of those departments except for Parkview Health Center. The rest just says consisting of $18 million from the undesignated general fund. I can't support this resolution tonight, given the outstanding questions related to Parkview. And I really think that we should postpone this until we have all of the questions answered and the finance director from Parkview has had a chance to really review and study what implications may occur there based on this decision tonight.
Supervisor Eisen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, as long as we're talking about Parkview, if you look at your 2023 budget, adopted budget, you will see that the revenue, operating revenue for Parkview that was adopted was $12,951,000, and that the expense was $15,455, and that the projected difference was operating revenue of $10,363,000 and expense of $13 million, projected of $13,041,000. That means the expenses, the operating revenue from Parkview was reduced by $2.6 million, and that the expenses were reduced by $2.2 million. And we're going to claim them as lost revenue. Another factor, too, is that from the Federal Register dated January 27th, 2022, it states on page 4403 that the Treasury estimates the average revenue lost may range from 0 to $11.7 million for a recipient over the period of performance. And this is from a survey of or a estimate of 32,000 municipalities, and we're going to claim 33 million.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This process lacks transparency. It is devoid of public trust, and ultimately it attempts to move money around in a questionable fashion to obfuscate the responsibilities of reporting. And that's been clear from the administration that that's the intent. Not that it creates greater leeway to spend the money to improve our county, but purely to remove the reporting requirements. Couldn't be more clear that this lacks the type of transparency and oversight that was set out in this program. And this board would have major objections if an organization that we granted money to tried to act this way, tried to find loopholes and ways for them to not report directly on the activities that the grant supports. We also have a commission that is dysfunctional. It hasn't even been able to to approve minutes of its meetings. Clearly, the information that the ARPA Strategy and Outcome Commission isn't even making it around the key parts of the county to get a well-rounded response from staff about what the implications of this is. I urge the county board to vote no and force the commission to come back with a more transparent process for spending this money. Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
I have a question and then I have a comment. If we do not approve this, then all the resolutions that follow suit behind this cannot be acted on because we aren't doing what this resolution said, forming the spirit.
You're correct. This has to pass first, and county executive would have to sign it.
So on that, I make a motion to send this resolution back to the ARPA Commission because I am worried about Parkview.
Motion's been made and seconded to send it back to the ARPA Commission. Supervisor Nussbaum on that. I see no one else, so the motion is made and seconded to send it back to The ARPA Commission. Pardon? Right. This has to be a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. I'll do a roll call vote. I know, quite sure I know how it goes. Has everybody voted? Don't bring it up. Well, you're all voting. I just want to say about the minutes, there's only 1 minute that didn't go out, or 1 minute. And that was because there was a discrepancy on it, and so we can't print a minute if it wasn't voted on. It was held back. That's the only 1 minute that I know of, section of minutes that didn't go out. And that is being looked at this month again, so so it's on the agenda. So I wouldn't say we're dysfunctional. Okay. Supervisor Cox? This motion to go back to commission. Commission, committee, right. That passes, 2014. And I'm open for adjournment. Motion made, second adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned.